بسم الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we continue the explanation of Hamawiyyah or Fatwa Hamawiyyah al-Kubra of the great Imam Abu Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. The time now is 7:02 p.m. Wednesday, November the 17th, 2021. We agrees on the Islamic calendar, where technically this is Thursday night, Laylatul Khamis. Where's the 12th that we said, if I'm not mistaken? The 14th? The 13th night, which is the night of Laylatul Khamis of Thursday, the year 1443, after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Notice that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, that was mentioned about those who were famous. We don't technically say famous, but infamous maybe. For the description of those from the people who deviated, and they deviated others, starting from the Mu'tazila, where Shaykh al-Islam mentioned them. After we mention the people of the Sunnah, then you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam gave a brief history of how what had taken place is the same chain which was used all the way up to the Ash'ari period. We'll start if we would go back a bit, the Mu'tazila, who was affected by the Jahmiyyah, who preceded them. Then who came after the Mu'tazila was the Ash'ari or the Kullabiyah, then the Ash'ari. Then you have those sects such as the Maturidiyah and other than them. But the origin of all of them come from the same chain. And that's what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning here, as we discussed last class. For example, we said about what happened with Abi Ali al-Jubba'i, which is a clear example of what we mentioned last class. Ali al-Jubba'i was Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari's stepfather. Zawju Ummah was his stepfather, and he was Mu'tazili. So the deviant sect called the Ash'ari originally came from where? From the Mu'tazila. Even though Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari opposed his stepfather, Abu Ali al-Jubba'i, in certain affairs, but some of the same ideas and concepts were passed on. Even though Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari rahimahullah had opposed him in certain matters. Certain matters he didn't agree, but certain affairs, they're the same. You were the same. Even though Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari rahimahullah abandoned those beliefs, as he made Tawbah rahimahullah, but we're just talking about beginning stages. But the point we're trying to mention is, because we're not trying to lose track or sight of what we're trying, or the point of why we're mentioning this, that everything was a chain that was passed on from history all the way up to those events, even up to today. The same ideologies you'll find, for example, certain Muslims that say that Allah is not above the heavens, that all originated from that time of Ja'd ibn Dirham and Abu Jahl al-Safwan. They started and originated those ideas that Allah is not above, that Allah is not above the heavens, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not above the Arsh at all. Then you'll find different statements of confusion, such as Allah existing without a place, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere, or is it everything. Then you have from the Muslims who deviate in this affair what they call an ittihad, or wahdatul wujud, which is Allah becoming one with the creation becoming one with Allah, and all those other different types of matters. Those matters originated, as we said, from what Shaykh al-Islam mentioned here. And we'll just read it quickly. This is where we stopped at last class. He said, وَهَذِهِ التَّأْوِيلَاتِ الْمَوْجُودَةِ الْيَوْمِ بِأَيْدِ النَّاسِ مثل أكثر التأويلات التي ذكرها أبو بكر ابن فورك. Here it says فورك, but it's the correct ضبط, the correct vowels that's put on that word is فورك, not فورك. I think there's some tabaat or some copies that some of our brothers have. It says فورك. It's not fu, it's فو with a fatha, بفتح الفاء. فورك. Abu Bakr ibn Fawrak, in his book called At-Ta'wilat. Ta'wilat meaning twisting the meanings of Allah's names and attributes. But they call it Ta'wil, but Ahl Sunnah we call it Tahrif, distortion. But anyway, listen to what Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say. وَذَكَرَهَا أبو عبد الله محمد بن عمر الرازي. We mentioned him, and that he's known for his, what's his name everyone? Al-Fakhr al-Razi, as we mentioned. الفخر الرازي. He said في كتابه الذي سماه تأسيس التقديس وأساس التقديس. We already talked about this. ويوجد كثير منها في كلام خلق غير هؤلاء مثل أبي علي الجبائي وعبد الجبار ابن أحمد الهمداني. So Shaykh al-Islam started off with who everyone? He started about the Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila. Because all these were people that were upon i'tizal. All of them were upon i'tizal. Such as Abu Ali al-Jubba'i wa Abd al-Jabbar ibn Ahmad al-Hamdani. Forgot to mention that. طيب. Ibn Fawrak, however, he was whatever he was, we mentioned last class, he was Ash'ari. So Shaykh al-Islam seems like he's starting with the later generations on down. If you look at your book, he's going from the later generations, then he's going backwards to give you the chain, to where it stemmed from. So he's talking about who everyone, Abu Bakr ibn Fawrak. He was what everyone? Ash'ari, as we mentioned last class, right? He was Ash'ari. Ibn Fawrak. His name is Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn Hassan ibn Fawrak al-Asbahani. As he studied the madhab al-Asha'ira. We said that he studied the madhab al-Asha'ira over the student of Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. And his name was who everyone? Abu al-Hasan al-Bahili. Abu al-Hasan al-Bahili. He was the student of Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. As we mentioned last class, right everyone? طيب. وذكرها أبو عبد الله محمد بن عمر الرازي. We talked about Fakhr al-Razi. We spoke about him. وفي كتاب الذي سماه تأسيس التقديس. Then now he's moving on to who everyone? The Mu'tazila. مثل أبو علي الجبائي وعبد الجبار بن أحمد الهمداني. And then we mentioned Abu al-Husayn al-Basri. Abu al-Husayn al-Basri, he was also from the so-called scholars of the Mu'tazila. And he has a lot of treatises which contained in it philosophy or kalam. Oh, they call it tasanif al-kalamiyah. Meaning books that contain whatever you want, philosophy, things connected with rhetoric. We said that Abu Hussein al-Basri, his name was who everyone, Muhammad ibn Ali al-Basri. And we mentioned last class he was fasih. He was very eloquent and well versed in speech. Azb al-ibara. They said he used to say he was the azb al-ibara. I mean, the people loved to listen to him. He had very decorated speech, and his speech was so well versed and eloquent and influential. They counted him and they gave him the title as being baligh or fasih. Baligh. Having balagha and fasaha, meaning he's very well versed and eloquent, very well versed and eloquent and intelligent. So, Abu Hussein al-Basri, you'll notice that a lot of people who are upon deviation were known to have that characteristic. A lot of people upon deviation were known to be very well eloquent in speech. And similar to that, you'll find that same way is up today. How many people do we know that are upon great deviation, but they use, or they have eloquence? They have a good hold on grammar, and as far as in English, and some of the in Arabic also. Very eloquent, very well versed. They know how to keep the people engaged with their speech. And Allah knows best that's from the tricks of the devils, that the shaitan allow these people to become well versed in their speech, very eloquent. Because that's how you trap the people. That's how you trap them. You're very eloquent, well versed, use speech that the people are bewildered by, they're astonished by. MashaAllah, this person is very eloquent, educated, he's using this great eloquence in order for the people to become fooled by. And you'll find that the shayateen, especially with these type of individuals, are inspired to do that. They're inspired to do that. So you'll find that a lot of them are in that way, well-grounded and have a very good hold on English as far as grammatically, or in certain words, as far as knowing how to deliver a speech that's very eloquent and impactful to the people, become what? Fooled. And like we said, all of that is from the traps of the devils, which they do to or they inspire to their awliya. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that's from the ways of the shayateen and what they push their friend or those who are close to them to do. Notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ إيش؟ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book that we have revealed to we have made for كَذَلِكَ جَعْلَنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ, every prophet an enemy. The devils of the ins and the jinn, from the human beings and the unseen devils. Listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. They inspire one another with decorated speech. They inspire one another for decorated speech to allure you, to trick you. How many people out here do we know, for people who are upon great deviation, calling the people to the hellfire, but their speech is very what? Very deceitful, very impactful. Their speech is like magic. And we know the Prophet ﷺ described that speech can be a form of what? Magic, if one uses it in order to decorate falsehood. These are all narrations that we know. Inna la fil bayani ish as it comes in the Sahih. Verily, most definitely clarification, meaning in speech, when someone addresses an individual, is sihr, it's magic. How speech can be very captivating, alluring. And a person can speak to the point, can keep you engaged until you become what? From their followers. And that's similar to how the Dajjal in the last days of this earth, when the Dajjal is released, the one-eyed liar is released amongst the people, he will be given also that characteristic. He'll be able to decorate his speech so well to the point where an individual who's firm or is a mu'min will come, and the Dajjal will twist his mind so much to the point he will become from one of his followers. Because he'll be given that type of what? That type of mohiba, or I want to say mohiba, but he'll be given that characteristic of decorated speech. So notice this individual, his name was who everyone? Abu Hussein al-Basri. He was also known for what? Fasaha or balagha. He was known for being very eloquent or versed in Arabic. And they get to the point they called him Adb al-Ibal. Like it was so alluring, his speech. Very, very decorated. So the people were captivated by his speech. They were very captivated. And they said he was also highly intelligent. Not to praise this individual, but however to mention the reasons of why the people became what? Fooled by him. Why the people became fooled by this individual. So Abu Hussein al-Basri, like we said, everyone. Notice we mentioned notice Shaykh al-Islam went in a specific order in Hamawiyyah. He said, وَأَبُو الْوَفَاء ibn Aqil. We said that Ibn Aqil, his story was very well. He stood out. Why? Because in his origin, he was Hanbali. Ibn Aqil was Hanbali. He was upon the Aqidah of the Imam Ahmad. However, Ibn Aqil, his name was Ali ibn Aqil, rahimahullah, excuse me. Maybe we can say rahimahullah, even though we didn't die upon kufr. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him when he died in the state if he was still upon that i'tizal. But anyway, Abu al-Wafa Ali ibn Aqil al-Baghdadi. Notice he was Hanbali. He was Hanbali. He debated with some of the students of Abu Hussein al-Basri. As I mentioned last class. He debated with some of Abu Hussein al-Basri students. He debated with an individual. His name was Abu Ali ibn al-Walid. Abu Ali ibn al-Walid or Abu al-Qasim or Abu al-Qasim ibn al-Tabban. He was the two companions of Abu Hussein al-Basri. What happened as a result of it? He deviated from the Sunnah. And halafa al-Sunnah. He deviated from the Sunnah because of the debate of the students of Abu Hussein al-Basri. And like we mentioned, it said their names were who everyone? Their name were Abu Ali ibn al-Walid. Abu Ali ibn al-Walid and who? Abu al-Qasim. Abu al-Qasim. Like we mentioned, it said concerning Ibn Aqil, the great Imam al-Hafiz ibn Rajab said concerning him. He said, وَيَظْهَرُ فِيهِ فِي بَعْضِ أَحْيَانِهِ نوع انحراف عن السنة وتأول لبعض الصفات. He said, you'll find in certain occasions, in certain times. You alright, Shaykh?
Yeah, just trying to get it together.
He said, you'll find that it manifests in certain times a type of deviation from the Sunnah and false interpretations to some of those characteristics of Allah. He said that it continued to be like that, or some of those affairs emanated until he died, rahimahullah. But that's in regards to Abu al-Wafa ibn Aqil. He has a very interesting story that if I have more time, I will elaborate more. But we're trying to finish the book, so we keep it concise to this point without giving too many. But if one is able, go back to his story. The story is very interesting. To the point where, like I said, notice Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab even mentioned something about him. The great Imam, Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab. Because we know Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab was also what? Hanbali. He was also what? Hanbali.
Is this the same Sahib al-Fiyah?
Same one. Same one. Ibn Aqil. No. We also mentioned Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, we also mentioned the affairs concerning him last class. We want to continue. طيب. Notice it says in the book, وَغَيْرِهَا هِيَ بِعَيْنِهَا التَّأْوِيلَاتِ الَّتِي ذَكَرَهَا بِشْرِ الْمَبِيسِ. So now he's mentioning the history. So he goes back a little bit more, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, if you look at your books, right everyone? So notice it says, التي ذكرها بشر المريسي التي ذكرها في كتابه وإن كان قد يوجد في كلام بعض هؤلاء رد التأويل وإبطاله أيضا. To the end of it. He said, all these affairs return back to who? What's it saying in your books, everyone? I'm sorry, Muhammad, did I give you a chance to read it? The translation? You have it?
Yeah, I have it.
Can you read it for me? I'm sorry. I apologize.
Starting from
just where it says Abu Hussein al-Basri. As a matter of fact, you could go back where it talks about these ta'wilat, these false or twisted distortions that are present today. So basically, Shaykh al-Islam is talking about how his time, the effects of the Mu'tazila during the Khilafah of who? Khilafat al-Ma'mun. How to this day, the Muslims are still affected by what had taken place during that time up to now. Well, he's talking about his time. And even up to today, it doesn't make a difference. Follow. I'm sorry.
And these distortions that are present today in the hands of the people are the likes of the majority of the distortions mentioned by Abu Bakr ibn Thawra.
We said Abu Bakr ibn Fawrak. Also, who was able to affect from the great ulama of the past? Who? Anyone know? Al-Bayhaqi. Imam al-Bayhaqi. He was affected by Ibn Fawrak. No. We'll talk about that later. I have a lot of books and references in regards to the history of this. I just don't have time. If I had more time, I could do a little bit more research and I could give you more details. But Ibn Fawrak was one of those people who affected the great Imam al-Bayhaqi. Also, what happened with Abdur Razzaq, rahimahullah. Abdur Razzaq ibn Hammad ibn Nafi' al-San'ani al-Yamani, the great Imam, mutawaffa sanat 211, the one who died 211, was also affected by the... Go ahead, Tafadal Muhammad. Tafadal, I'm sorry. Sorry.
The majority of the distortions mentioned by Abu Bakr ibn Fawrak in his book At-Ta'wilat, and mentioned by Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Umar al-Razi in his book that is named Ta'sis al-Taqdees.
Ta'sis al-Taqdees. What's the meaning of Ta'sis al-Taqdees? For lack of a better word, Ta'sis means the foundation of Taqdees. The foundation of Taqdees. The foundation of veneration or glorification. Laying down the foundation of Taqdees. Muqaddas means something Muqaddas means like something holy or sacred or consecrated. So that's the word. That's what the word Taqdees means. I'm sorry.
And most of these statements that can be found with other than them, the likes of Abi Ali al-Jubba'i
No.
and Abdul Jabbar ibn Ahmed al-Hamdani.
We talked about what happened with him and his debate with who? It was Abu Ishaq al-Isfaraini. What had taken place between him last class. Did we give that example?
No.
It's a tremendous example. And that shows that for persons that will grounded in Aqidah, how these type of shayateen could spin your head. These type of people that come with these type of demonic, satanic ideas can spin your head around if you're not careful. I'm sorry. Follow.
And Abu Hussein al-Basri and Abi
Abu al-Wafa.
Abi Wafa ibn Aqil and Abi Hamad al-Ghazali and other than them.
What was Abu al-Wafa's name? Was Ali ibn Aqil. Ali ibn Aqil. Follow. I'm sorry.
And other than them. These statements in reality are the same as that which was mentioned by Bishr al-Marisi in his book. Even though there may exist in the speech of some of them a refutation of ta'wil and its invalidation and good speech in some affairs.
Keep reading.
Now that I have made it clear that the distortion of these people are in reality the same as the distortion of Bishr al-Marisi, and what alludes to this is the refutation that was written by Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Darimi.
Tremendous book. If I had time, we would go through that book or some of it. But Hamawiyyah will give you a good basis. This will give you an excellent basis. Like I said, we live in some very trying times where people have abandoned knowledge. These affairs will get you prepared for the future. Because we think we're living fitna now is more fitna to come. Yes, there is. If you don't armor yourself with the armor of knowledge, you'll be open and liable for attack by the devils. And when I say the devils, meaning the unseen devils and their close companions from those who have decorated speech. Because Shaitan has put his army out on these social platform medias, or these social media platforms, these social media platforms where they have, a lot of them have decorated speech. And they are the soldiers in the army of the shayateen. And they are very, very eloquent, and they know how to keep the people engaged when they speak. Not realizing that a lot of these affairs are not educating you in Islam. It's like an entertainment show. It's not educating you anything. Especially in those channels that's always talking about controversy. That's not education. That's just keeping you entertained by what's the latest dirt. That's not education. That's just to keep you sidetracked and waste your time and to keep you entertained. And there's a lot of those people out there who are from the devils and from their awliya. These type of classes and books and being educated will educate you. It will strengthen your aqidah to know the plot of the shayateen and their awliya. The plot of the devils and those who are close to them. And who were they in the past? So this is what Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say. I'm sorry.
No. Now that I've made it clear that the distortion of these people in reality is the same as the distortion of Bishop al-Marisi.
Bishop al-Marisi was from the awliya of the shayateen. He's from the awliya of the shayateen. To the point, as I talked about in the other that comes on the great Imam Yahya Zimmi, when he seen a devil, he seen a jinn. He seen a jinn, and the jinn said, I left the Khalifa. And he said, the Khalifa is Bishop al-Marisi. He said, I left the Khalifa to misguide the people. Who is he? Bishop al-Marisi, he said. So who's this Khalifa you left? So, just to let you know that all the wicked ideas or inspiration, that Allah does not have certain names and attributes, or that the Quran was created, and the likes of those ideas and wicked, corrupt ideologies are all inspiration for the devils. Is it clear, everyone? You hear the fact that the Quran is created, and to this day, to this very day, this very moment, the Asha'ira believe the Quran is created. The Asha'ira believe, even though they're not called Asha'ira, it's not supposed to be called Asha'ira, but the Kullabiyya, but they still believe what everyone, that the Quran is created, to this very day. It's no different. So they still have adopted the ways of the shayateen, and they still believe them. So all these affairs, call them what they call them. They are the call and the understanding and the concepts and the ideas of the devils. When we say devils, meaning the unseen devils. They come with these wicked concepts to call the children of Adam to the hellfire. Lead from the awliya of the shayateen is Bishop al-Marisi. Tafadal.
And what alludes to this is the refutation that was written by Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Darimi, who was one of the great imams during the time of Bukhari. He wrote a book named Uthman ibn Sa'id, Refutation upon an obstinate liar concerning what has been fabricated upon Allah in Tawheed.
طيب. We mentioned, before I go back and just reiterate what Muhammad just read, Jazahullah khairan, he said, those Shaykh al-Islam, if you go back a little bit, what does it say? He said, you'll find in some of the books of these greats, some of the books of these scholars that might have repented, that you'll find like even though they repented, or some of them did, some of them didn't, you'll still find that some of them were affected, that they wavered. It's like you'll find certain books, they went back to philosophy. There's certain books they came with, they're refuting it. So it's like there was an inner battle going on within themselves. Like it was just like a waver, like a pull. But that's to let you know how poisonous these type of ideas have over an individual. That person has to be very careful. How these affairs can cling to one's heart to a point where it becomes like an inner struggle. Some of them during their lives, as we talked about in the last class a couple of months ago, that during the last part of their lives, they wrote these books as if they was refuting what they were upon before. And that's what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning, where it says here. The great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami, he goes on to say, he said, إِنَّ هَؤُلَا فِيهِمْ مَنْ تَأَثَّرَ. From amongst them, those who are affected. He said, وَمَعَ ذَلِكَ بَقِيَ عِنْدَهُ شَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ. Even though they were affected, it was something left of good. So those the great Shaykh, the great Imam, Muhammad al-Jami, Sahib al-Aqidah, the great Imam who was well firm and known that he stood out in this affair of Aqidah, which is a great characteristic to stand out by. He says, وَمَعَ ذَلِكَ بَقِيَ عِنْدَهُ شَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ يَخْلِطُونَ بَيْنَ التَّأْوِيلِ وَبَيْنَ رَدِّهِ. They used to mix between distortion and refuting it. Between distorting the meanings of the names and attributes of Allah, then you'll find that they used to what at the same time? Refute it. He said, from them was Al-Ghazali, Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali. He said, كَثِيرًا مَا يُؤَوِّلْ. He said, plentiful he used to what? Fall to ta'wil, meaning distorting the names and attributes of Allah. He said, then you'll find تجده أحيانا في بعض كتبه رد التأويل. Then you'll find at certain times in some of his books he's rejecting it, he's refuting it. والنهي عن الخوض في علم الكلام. You'll find that he prohibited for one to partake in rhetoric, for one partaking in rhetoric or busying themselves with rhetoric. He said, الغزالي يحتل المرء في أمره إن قرأت له كتابه المظنون به على غير أهله He said, for verily a person is bewildered by Ghazali concerning his affair. If you was to read his book, for example, his book called Al-Mazloom Bihi Ala Ghayri Ahli. He said what a person thinks about, meaning their belief, upon other than its people. He said this type of book, even the title itself is kind of strange. He said even the book itself, if you'll find it, this is by Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, he said you'll find that he's engrossed in philosophy. He's engrossed in philosophy. He's Samim in Filsafah. He's engrossed in philosophy. Until the point, as we mentioned last class, the great Imam Ibn al-Arabi, not Ibn Arabi, Ibn al-Arabi, al-Maliki, al-Salafi. He said concerning him, عندما حكم عليه أن الشيخ دخل في بطن الفلسفة فلم يستطيع الخروج. He said, you'll find that that Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, that he entered, he says in بطن الفلسفة, at the highest extent, or if you want to say the deepest, lowest, meaning the root of philosophy. He said to the point he was not able to what? Come out of it. He said in this book, you'll find that he authored this with this weird title, Al-Mazloom Bihi Ala Ghayri Ahli, what is thought about, meaning what person believes upon other than his people. It's an extremely strange title in itself. He said you'll find that he's in the what? He's in pure philosophy. He's in pure Greek philosophy. To the point where he even says Samim al-Falsafat al-Yunaniyah. He says pure Greek philosophy. It says the Yunan. We know the word Yunan is translated as what, everyone? Greece. He says as if he's in the bottom, he's like in the sea of philosophy. Right? He said then, now listen to this. Then you'll find a book by him at the same time called Iljam al-Awam an Ilm al-Kalam. Then you'll find that he has a book called Muzzling the Common Folk from Busying Themselves with Rhetoric. So it's as if he's refuting what he was. You understand, everyone? So you get the point? وفي معناه عدة مسائل يمنع من الخوض في علم الكلام يمدح منهج السلف ويثني عليه كثيرا. He said to the point you'll find there's a number of issues. And he mentioned in the book prohibiting the people from indulging in rhetoric, praising methodology of the Salaf, praising them a lot. And then he also confesses that it's the truth. Then you'll read a book called, that's very famous to this day, that some of the Sufis even busy themselves, which is called Ihya Ulum al-Din. I'm sure that some of the brothers are familiar with this book. Ihya Ulum al-Din. Ihya Ulum al-Din. No. He says, bringing back or restoring Ulum al-Din, the sciences of the Deen. That's the name of the book. He said, then this book, so you got one book that is as if he's in the pit of what? Philosophy. Then you have a book where it shows what? He's refuting it. Then he has a book that is mixing between that and that one. So it's as if he's being pulled, like it's like a pull, like a fight, like an inner fight going on, like an inner struggle. He says, then you'll find Ihya Ulum al-Din khat bayna hadha wa dhak, where he mixes between this one and that one. He says, take in consideration that the book Ihya Ulum al-Din, as Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah said, relatively speaking, that was from one of his best books, and that did have knowledge in it, relatively speaking. مع ذلك فيه خلط. He said, even though it had in it a mixture of what was incorrect and correct. So you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam was mentioning everything about his enemy, of those who fell into these type of atrocities or these type of issues, mentioning what was correct and mentioning what was incorrect, and then letting the people know of what happened in regards to them or concerning their affair in the past. Right, so let's go on to the next part. So this is where, inshallah, and I'm saying this in Bab al-Haf to encourage our brothers, Ustad Muhammad, inshallah, فإنما بينت أن عين تأويلاتهم, that's from encouragement, that's all. I'm encouraging him. One day he'll be Ustad. أن عين التأويلات هم هي عين التأويلات تأويلات المريسي ويدل على ذلك كتاب الرد الذي صنفه عثمان بن سعيد الدارمي. He just read this. He said, Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, for verily I clarify precisely their ta'wilat, their false distortions, which is the same false distortions of Marisi, and which indicates that is the book by the great Imam who lived during the time of the great Imam al-Bukhari. His name was Uthman al-Sa'id al-Darimi, in his tremendous book, Refuting Bishr al-Marisi, which was entitled Radd Uthman al-Sa'id al-Kadhib al-Anid Fima Iftara ala Allah fi al-Tawheed. The refutation of Uthman ibn Sa'id upon the stubborn liar who fabricated upon Allah and Tawheed. That's a tremendous title. It was very, very strong. Very, very strong. حكى فيه هذه التأويلات بأعيانها عن بشر المريسي بكلام يقتضي أن المريسي أقعد بها وأعلم بالمنقول والمعقول. I'm sorry. تفضل Muhammad. This is where we stop. You can read. I'm sorry. I apologize. تفضل.
And he wrote a book named Uthman ibn Sa'id, Refutation upon an obstinate liar concerning what has been fabricated upon Allah and Tawheed. He relates these distortions directly from Bishr al-Marisi with speech that will render him crippled. He was more knowledgeable about what was transmitted and comprehensible than the later generation who took this information. By way of this direction, by way of him, then Uthman ibn Sa'id refuted it with speech that if read by an intelligent, sharp-minded individual, he would know the true reality of what the Salaf were upon and the apparent proofs of their way and the weak proof of those who oppose them.
Keep going.
Furthermore, when you look at the Imams of guidance, all of them came together in the dispraise of al-Marisiyah, meaning the way of Bishr al-Marisi, and the majority of them labeled them disbelievers or misguided. And it's known that this contagious statement that is with the later generation is the exact methodology of Marisiyah.
Exactly. What it's saying is, just to sum up, everyone, just to keep it simple. Shaykh al-Islam is saying that Bishr Marisi had knowledge about what he was upon. He wasn't muqallid. He wasn't a blind fanatic, just blind follower. He was not just blind follower. Meaning, he was knowledgeable. He was a misguided individual who was upon knowledge, which is the worst form of condition, worst state to be in. Worst state to be in is that you have knowledge of what you're doing. So, what it is the later generation, even till today, same thing. All they are is muqallida. They just blind follow. A lot of them don't even understand what they're doing. A lot of them don't even know why they're doing it. It's just saying, I'm just doing it because it sounds maybe nice, I guess. Or maybe certain speakers, that when they address the people, they're very eloquent, so it sounds captivating. So it sounds like it's right, but it's not. It's actually a satanic inspiration. But due to the fact that they haven't been educated properly, they can't distinguish the difference because they never heard the truth. So as a Muslim, they're hearing this and thinking that's Islam, but whereas they didn't hear anything else, so automatically they're just what? They're just blind following. It sounds nice, so I'll just go along with it. However, Bishr Marisi wasn't like that. So basically, Shaykh al-Islam is saying that the majority of the later generation, in most circumstances, they were just taqleed. In most generations, it was just blind following. But in contrast to who? Bishr Marisi was what? It was upon ilm. That's why he says clearly. He said he was knowledgeable of what was manqul wa ma'qul. It says clearly. He was knowledgeable of what was manqul wa ma'qul. Manqul meaning which came in Kitab and Sunnah and some of the athar and some of the narrations of the Salaf that were firmly established upon the message of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. He was knowledgeable of that. And even what was ma'qul, meaning what was understood properly, the ma'qulat. So, just to sum it up, the majority of the later generation, in most cases, what had taken over them was what everyone taqleed, blind following, taqleed, being a blind fanatic. And we know the word fanatic needs to be clinging to something without any evidences or proofs, just because you just feel like it's a nice thing, like a fanatic or something. Sports fanatic, but anyway, I just like so-and-so. Why you like him? I don't know, I just like the jersey, I just like the player, I just like, it's a fanatic. You understand? Blind fanaticism. طيب. So, in regards to Bishop Merisi, he says that's not his case. وَعَدَمُ التَّمَكُّ مِنَ الْمَعْقُودَاتِ وَالْمَنْقُولَاتِ. Bishop Merisi, now listen what the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad al-Mali mentioned. He said, عَلَى ضَلَالِهِ مُتَمَكِّن في فهم المعقولات والمنقولات. Despite of him being upon his guidance, he was what? He was mutamakkin. He's clearly understood the understanding of what was correctly or supposed to be the correct understanding and what was conveyed of those transmissions in Kitab and Sunnah. In which, like we said, Shaykh al-Islam testified here, clarifying the reality about the khasam al-ani, meaning the stubborn individual who was from those who misguided the people. So notice it goes on to say, وَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُ ظُهُورُ الْحُجَّةِ. Why did Shaykh al-Islam mention this? That he had knowledge about what he was doing. Because you'll find that some of the Salaf declared Bishop Merisi to be out the fold of Islam. You'll find that. You'll find those transmissions from some of the Salaf. And we know that the Salaf never used to declare an innovator or individual out the fold of Islam unless they had knowledge of what they were upon. Like we said, Bishop Merisi was upon some deep misguidance, very deep, to the point where it was narrated upon him. He used to say this dua, Subhana Rabbi al-Asfal. He didn't used to say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. Glory be to our Lord, the Most High. He used to say, glory be to our Lord that's below. That's how engrossed of misguidance he was in. That's how the devils have penetrated his mind, to the point he used to say these satanic statements. He used to say certain things such as this, glory be to my Lord, the one who's below. It even sounds like a satanic statement. It sounds like something like a devil would inspire an individual to say, right everyone? Doesn't sound like a Muslim that would say that. It's very, very strange, extremely strange. Nasallahu alayhi wa sallam. At any rate, Shaykh al-Islam was mentioning this in order to say, وَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُ ظُهُورُ الْحُجَّةِ لِطَرِيقِهِمْ وَضَعْفُ الْحُجَّةِ مَنْ خَالَفَهُمْ ثُمَّ إِذَا رَأَى أئمة الهدى قد أجمعوا على ذم المريسية وأكثرهم كفروهم. You hear it? أكثرهم كفروهم المريسي ومن تبعه أو ضللوهم على حسب ما يظهر لكل إنسان. He said, and it became clear to him the evident proofs, or the clear proofs of what they were upon, or due to their way, and the weak evidences of the ones who opposed them, meaning the Salaf, meaning they clarified it, meaning from the scholars of the Sunnah, the scholars of proper guidance, that they had a consensus upon condemning Marisiyah, meaning Bishop Merisi and his followers. He said the majority of them declared them to be kuffar, meaning Merisi and those who follow them, or from them who declared them to be misguided. He said in accordance to what had become, or what had manifest to every person, meaning from those scholars, the people of the Sunnah, of what the understanding had, or what type of understanding they had, of whether or not the individual deserved to be declared upon disbelief or not. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقِفْ بِهِ الْفَهْمْ دُونَ التَّكْفِيرِ. And some of them just declared him to be misguided and out the fold of Sunnah, meaning he's an innovator. He's from those who innovated in the religion. Upon both circumstances, both of them are very evil. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from both circumstances. So he goes on to say, وَعَلِمَ أَنَّ هَذَا الْقَوْءَ السَّارِيَ فِي هَؤُلَاءِ الْمُتَأَخِّرِينَ فِي عَهْدِ ابْنِ تَيْمِيَّةَ إِلَى يَوْمِنَا هَذَا هو مذهب المريسية تبين الهدى لمن يريد الله هدايته ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. He says, Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say that, which is known, or he has knowledge, that this statement that we see here, especially in the later generation, and Shaykh al-Islam is talking about his time, and to our present day times, that it is the madhab of Bishop Merisi and those who follow him, which it becomes clear the guidance for who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to guide. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Meaning, a lot of the ulama, who mean the ulama of the sunnah, those who became ai it became clear to them the misguidance of this individual and the ideologies he came with. He says, some of them did. فَرَجَعُوا فَتَابُوا. Some of them from the past, of course, meaning probably from the followers, or some of them. فَرَجَعُوا فَتَابُوا. He said, for verily they came back, they made tawbah. And we know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives tawfiq to make tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept it. However, the ones who become blind fanatics, especially during these days that we live in, and those where they find that their status or the respect or reverence they have for their followers also holds them back from returning to the truth. And they blind follow, they cling blindly to that madhab, or they cling blindly to their so-called shuyukh, or similar to what happened with Abu Talib, the uncle of the Messenger of Allah, meaning that they had inwardly within themselves knowing what the truth is. However, out of outside being censored or finding blameworthy, or the people insulting them or mocking him, then he just remained upon it, even though in the back of his mind he didn't believe it. Rather, he believed what was the truth of what happened with who? Abu Talib, the uncle of the Messenger of Allah. He believed it in his heart when his nephew was upon the truth. Believed it. However, out of fear, what? Condemnation from the people. Out of fear of his family, saying, are you going to leave off what we were upon for years? This has been in our ancestors for years. You just going to leave that all and abandon that? For what he's saying? He says, out of outwardly being condemned and censored and finding blameworthy or being insulted, all these affairs allowed one to what? Die in the state of kufr. What happened with Abu Talib? So being weak-minded, brothers and sisters, is extremely dangerous, especially these days, where a person always has to ask Allah to keep their heart open for the truth, and never to be afraid to traverse upon it based upon what might come to you of censorship or condemnation from the people. Because being weak-minded and your heart not being open to the truth, whereas you accept it, is extremely dangerous. It can even lead you to be in hell forever. That's how dangerous it is. Because Abu Talib died in the state where he will be, Nasallallahu alayhi wa sallam, may Allah protect us, he'll be in the hellfire forever. Not only in the hellfire forever, even though the Messenger of Allah, due to his shafa'ah, due to his shafa'ah, his intercession, he's in the lightest part of the hellfire. As it says in the narration. هو على في ضحضاح من النار عليه نعمان يغلي منهما دماغه. As it says in the narration. He says he's in the lightest part of hell. He says, however, he has those two shoes in which his brain is boiling from. There's another narration that says, and if it wasn't due to my shafa'ah, my intercession, he would have been in the lowest part of hell. Why? Why, everyone? Because he knew the truth. He firmly believed it. He had it in his mind. He knew his nephew was upon the truth. He firmly believed it. That's why it says in the poetry, what did it say about Abu Talib, everyone? وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ أَنَّ دِينَ مُحَمَّدٍ من خير أديان البرية دينا ولولا الملامة أو حذار مسبة لوجدتني سمحا بذلك مبينا. Indeed, I know that the deen of Muhammad is the best religions of all of the creation as a deen. If it wasn't the fact of blame, or criticism or insults, you will find me openly broadcasting that clearly. What does this mean, everyone? What does that show? He knew the truth. However, being afraid of these affairs by the people is what held him back. These affairs, like we said, everyone, are extremely dangerous. Being weak-minded these days is extremely dangerous. It can get you hurt, it can get you killed, and it can even make you fall into the hellfire forever with iyadhu billah. And we know how weak people minds are. All you have to do is just look over the social media platforms and look out how many followers certain people have. Millions. Weak-minded. Weak-minded individuals. And how many people we see openly doing sin? Why? Because everyone, weak-minded. I'm just following behind what everyone's doing. Weak-minded, not strong-minded. Weak-minded. So those are the affairs that held back Abu Talib from Iman with Allah Ta'ala. Fear of malama wa hadad al-masabba. Fear of blame and censorship or condemnation from his people. It was said to him, how could you now switch your religion, the religion of your ancestors, for other Abdul Muttalib? And a lot of them, it became clear to them the truth and what the message of Allah came with. However, blind fanaticism held them back. The same thing with these same scholars of the past, meaning those scholars of rhetoric. Same thing, same methodology. They knew in their mind from them who knew that the truth was what? Was clear, that the Salaf were upon clarity in regards to belief in Allah and His attributes, in His name and attributes. They knew it clearly. And you'll find, like we said, from them was Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. You'll find in his book called Iljam al-Awam an Ilm al-Kalam, that book where he says, muzzling the common folk from busying themselves with rhetoric, meaning philosophy and the likes of it. And him praising the Salaf and telling them that that's the religion to follow, that's the belief to follow, that's the aqeedah to die upon. Right, everyone? So that's even what happened with him. But blind fanaticism, like we said, sometimes creeps in, and shaitan creeps in by these type of ideas and ways of being a blind fanatic to something, and it holds a person back from embracing the truth. And you'll find that's similar to what happened with Abu Talib, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, and similar to those scholars who fell to the same thing, and to this day it's the same exact thing, no different. Wallahi, you'll find that a lot of those scholars, even Shaykh Rabi', Hafidhullah, in a book, in his explanation of Aqidah to Salaf, he mentioned this. He says, Wallahi, I've met people from the Sufis, and I've heard things from the Sufis, from their scholars. He says, claiming and confessing that the Salaf are upon the truth. That the Salafis are upon the truth. The people of Sunnah are upon the truth. He said, however, what held them back is that we have a lot of prestige amongst the people, respect. He says, if we abandon this, all this we have is going to be gone. Our respect from our fathers will be gone. Our money and the nice homes and the nice house and the respect within the society and our status will be gone. But that's to let you know in their minds they believe what? They believe the truth. They knew it. He says, so that is the affairs that we wanted to explain. That was the fair one. However, from those ulama who are upon what was correct and they were affected by taqleed, and even the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami mentions this, is the great Imam Shaykh Khalil al-Harras, rahimahullah. Khalil al-Harras al-Misri, the great scholar from Misr, from Egypt, who was from the Asatidah, the professors of Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami, from his shuyukh. And he also explained al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah, in which Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami also has a commentary on. You'll find that this great scholar, Shaykh Muhammad Khalil al-Harras, in which he made Tawbah, and to the point that we know, if you look to his history, it's exactly what's said here. It's no different. Until he wrote a book that was defending philosophy in Egypt. And he was also a professor. Not only a professor, he was mutakhassis, he specialized in ilm al-kalam, he specialized in philosophy. And his initiative was to refute Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. The initiative he was given and the project he was given was to refute Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah until he embarked upon reading his books. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened his heart. To the point where even Shaykh Muhammad Khalil al-Razi even said, rahimahullah, he says, as if I study Islam from new, meaning it's as if Islam this is as if I just studied Islam. Can you imagine an individual starting from now, nursery, up to high school, Muslim, born Muslim, up to high school, up to the point he reached the level of what they call Jamia, of the university, to the point where he reached doctorate, reached a doctorate. And he studied philosophy. Keep in mind, he said he's Muslim. Reached this level to the point where it says about his history, rahimahullah, he said, they told me that the project for you is to refute Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah and defend philosophy, defend it, because this is part of our religion. Philosophy is part of our religion. Until Shaykh Muhammad Khalil al-Razi studied the books of Shaykh al-Islam, and he switched the title of his risala. You know what it was called? Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah Salafi. He switched it. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah Salafi. Not only that, he said, when I read the books of Shaykh al-Islam, he says, it's as if I studied the religion from new. And I've been Muslim all these years. To the point where I even reached the collegiate level, and not only the collegiate level, surpassed that to what? Being a doctor. Being a doctor, and having a doctorate. He says, as if I studied Islam over again. For all those years he's become Muslim in a Muslim country. And that's a message to go out to my brothers and sisters who've been Muslims for years. For Muslims for years. And they say, I've been Muslim all these years. I know more than you. To the end of it. What about this guy? What about this great scholar? Not only was he born Muslim, he was born in a Muslim country. Born in a Muslim country, hearing the adhan every day. And despite of that, he even admitted that when I've studied these books, it's as if I studied my religion over again. Is it clear, everyone? He says, now this is what Shaykh Muhammad Ahmad said. He says, كَمَا حَكَى لَنَا مُشَافَهَةً. He said, he confessed this to us, he admitted this to us verbally, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to be guided, until he became from the files of us Salaf al-Salih. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to die upon that, rahimahullah. He said, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept that from him. Ameen. Well, notice that Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, وَالْفَتْوَى لا تحتمل بسط في هذا الباب. Now, he says the fatwa, he says it does not necessitate that we go into too many details in this affair. The word bast means to give, means tawassur, means to go abroad, meaning as far as expanding and giving more details. He said we're not going to go too far into now a bast. Bast means tawassur, means to expound and give more details. So when you hear the word basit means mufassal, muwassa'. Not in how the common folks say today, especially if you go to Saudi Arabia, you say, how's that shaykh basit? Basit, you'll hear that. I'm sure people have studied abroad and studied in Saudi Arabia, especially in Medina, you heard them say that in the street. How do you have that shaykh basit? Basit, how they use it is wrong. Basit means muwassa'. It doesn't mean simple. It means something expanded to give more what? Clarity, and expound on it to the point where you're giving a lot of details. Is it clear, everyone? So that's what the meaning of it is. It says, وَإِنَّمَا نُشِيرُ إِشَارَةً. He said, we're not going to do that. The Shaykh al-Islam says, وَإِنَّمَا نُشِيرُ إِشَارَةً إِلَى مَبَادِئِ الْأُمُورِ وَالْعَاقِلُ يَسِيرُ فِيَنْظُرُ يَسْبِرُ بِالْبَاءِ أي يختبر فينظر فيفكر. He said, however, we give a glimpse, we give the ishara, we hint towards those affairs and the beginning of them. And the one with true understanding traverses upon and he looks with clarity. We'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue tomorrow. Did you ever get a chance to translate the next part?
No, man.
Not yet. What says كلام السلف في هذا الباب موجود في كتب كثيرة لا يمكن أن نذكر هنا إلا قليلا منه مثل كتاب السنن للالكائي. الله أكبر. Now Shaykh al-Islam is going on in the other tremendous books. No. Anything else, anyone? Any questions about the class? Hold on.
As far as the scholars that made the creed of Bishop Medisi, outside of Imam Ahmed, who was doing that first question, Imam Ahmed himself, he actually declared Bishop Medisi disbeliever.
That will necessitate research. Allahu Akbar. Check it for me.
Okay.
Let me know. Gather some of the scholars of the past that made takfir on Bishop Medisi. Try to bring it tomorrow.
Inshallah.
Not a lot. Don't go into detail. Give me 3 pages. Give me about 5 sentences or less. Keep it straight to the point. I know everybody's busy, so I'll try to keep it simple. Like, anything else? Follow.
Even with bust, how did he? Is the
I have
complete
no
opposite
idea. That's just something that the common folk had taken it and used it for their own way and their own. But it's incorrect. How you use it is incorrect.
Exactly. It seemed like it's the complete opposite of how.
Absolutely. And I remember Shaykh Abdullah Bukhari, when I was sitting within his house one time, he even corrected a student that wrote in his research paper, using that word in the way the common folk use it. He said, هذا شيء بسيط. He said, بسيط بمعنى التوسع. He said, هذا غلط. He said, it's not the improper way to use that word. Basit doesn't mean yasir or sahal. Doesn't mean that. Basit means muwassa'. It means something that's expounded upon with a lot of detail. You understand? Yeah. I don't know how a lot of things in the common folk or common language that's twisted, you never understand how did they get that out of that. Allah. Even the word bisat, you know, the bisat in the Arabic language means something that's a spread. Bisat. And the plural is busl. Like we put a spread on the ground. But now they use the word sufra more. Sufra. It's like plastic. But bisat, you know, it comes from the word bastal. It means like a spread. When you come and say spread, what does that mean? You understand, everyone? No. We'll stop here, inshallah. Anything else? Anything? Stop here. Sallallahu wasallam wa barak على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.